for the first time in about 2 years, I got a chance uh, to be in front of the pulpit and preach for a church, and the message was about breakthrough and deeper dimensions. And there's a section in that message that I shared that I thought was very, very interesting for me. So I wanted to kind of share the story so that you can get the principle that's in that, because I've been chewing on it for the whole week last week, and this is about shifting the narrative. And it's a story in the Bible that is a very interesting one, because Jesus got to a fig tree and cursed a fig tree, and then he went on his business. And then the next day, when they were on their way back, one of the disciples recognized the fig tree and saw that it was withered, and said, "Wait, isn't this the fig tree that you cursed yesterday? It's now dead." And then as a response to that, Jesus goes on to say one of the most famous statements that he's ever said. And he mentioned that if anyone has faith, they can speak to this mountain, right? And if they believe, whatever they ask will happen, right? And I know I've used a Bible story as a guide to what I want to share about shifting mindsets, but there is something interesting that I got from that story, and that is, do you know this mountain that he's talking about? It didn't have to move. It's a mountain that from generation to generation to generation to generation it has been there. It's like, what is your business moving mountains? Right? What has the mountain done to you? We've seen this, generation after generation have seen this mountain. However, it's just become what it is. It's become decor. It's become decoration to people. It's just there in the background. It's just a mountain, right? Why would you tell a mountain to move? Right? And so I started thinking about it, and I'm like, that is what people who end up doing something great in their lives do. They move stuff that have been there from generation after generation, and they say, you know what? We need a new view. Right? We need to look at something different. Hey, mountain, you move. We want our generation needs to see something different than what has been in past generations. So there are many things that in your life there are many things or big ideas that you might have that people may say, why? Why do we need to do it? Why do we need to raise 1 million entrepreneurs? Africa has been the way it's been. No one's complaining. Did anybody ask you that Africa needs 1 million entrepreneurs and leaders? Do you get what I mean? It's like you get to puzzle a lot of people. It's like, why do we even need this? Even for you, you come up with a great idea or a big idea, and then the question is, why? Like, it's been the way we've known things, right? The people who end up doing something great, they are the mountain movers. There are people who say the previous generation has seen something, right? And then now our generation needs to see something else. And it's usually something that to a normal person, it's not needed, right? You think that the world can just go on without it, right? And that's the thing that I got from this story about shifting the narratives, because the narrative has been, in your family there might be alcoholics, in your family maybe there's obesity, you know, in your family maybe there's diabetes. But like, it's like you live your life thinking, oh, this is just the way it's always been, and this is the way you always be. Let me encourage you. Let us start shifting our mindsets and shifting our narratives, because it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to look at the same mountain. Your children don't need to look at the same mountain. If there's any reason why, for me, the reason why I say that is because it's doing something so that my children live in a different environment than I did, or my parents did, right? So your children don't have to suffer the same way that you did. We don't have to be like, even like people who make an impact look at something that's normal, that's just always been there, that doesn't need to move. It's just there as decoration. But the person says, nah, this thing here, it needs to move. I don't know if you're grasping what I'm trying to say here. And I want to encourage you with your own life. What are some things that you have been okay with? What are some things that you're just like, oh, it's just the way it has been in my family line. My father was like this. My grandpa was like this. It's just the way it's always been. No. That's a mountain. You change perspective, change your narrative about your life, about your future. Because people who end up moving mountains are the ones who have the largest impact. One thing about Michael Jackson that I noted was that what made him have the impact that he had was because he created music that everyone else was not making. Normally musicians are inspired by other musicians. They're like, oh, you know, there's this style, there's this Afrobeat style that I want to create because Burna Boy, you know, is my inspiration, you know, all of that stuff. But then somebody who makes an impact says, no, there's this style that has been there for the last 30 years in Afrobeats. So that's what Michael Jackson did. If you listen to the style of music that was there at the time and what Michael Jackson started creating, it was like totally different to what specifically African Americans were making at the time. So I want to encourage you to be a person who looks at those mountains. And I always speak about faith because I believe that is my gifting. To have faith for something nobody else has had faith for. That's what it takes to shift the narrative. And here's the thing about shifting narratives. I've been in forums and conversations on an international level, or even I've been part of forums who talk about Africa and the diaspora, or even Pan-Africanisms. I've been part of those forums and we talk about changing the narrative, changing the narrative. One thing I will always say is, yes, I am part of those people who believe that, who can have those forums and those conversations. However, what I believe is to change Africa, it's not about looking at the whole Africa and being like, what can we change about the entire Africa? To change Africa, it's one life at a time. It's one person at a time. And then that one person impacts their family. And that family impacts their street. And that street impacts their community. And that community impacts that city. And that city impacts the country. And that country impacts the whole continent. Like that's my thinking. A lot of people think from outside in, as in the answer to Pan-Africanism is the African Union, right? So you've got the African Union who needs to solve all those problems, and then from the African Union you've got the individual governments of the the presidents of the countries need to lay down their thrones, and then if that doesn't happen, nothing will work, and then you've got inside the politics needs to change. So people are looking from outside in, and the way that I want to play the game is inside out. So when I talk about the shifting of narratives, I'm talking about the individual, you, yourself, shifting your own narrative about your own life. I don't know if that makes sense, because we can easily talk about, we Africans need to stop having this white savior mentality. We don't have to wait for the white people to save us and all of that kind of stuff. Yes, let's have those conversations. But let's talk about you and the little things about you. For example, what is it about your own life that you need to shift? What is it that has become normal in your own life that needs shifting? And then that's the narrative that needs to shift, right? So I want to encourage you about that. If we look back at the story of Jesus in this narrative, he told them, if you have faith and you speak to this mountain, it will move, right? However, he was standing in front of the fig tree as he said, look, if you speak to this mountain, right, then it will do what you say. The interesting thing about that scenario within itself is the fact that he said this mountain, right? It's a specific mountain, right? Because there are some of you who have started projects, but they didn't work. There are some of you who have started big things, but they didn't work. And you did it by faith, right? However, there's something about the fact that he said this mountain in front of this fig tree. And that is that saw the smaller issue get cursed and get its consequences. And then now the bigger issue looks at that smaller issue and what happened to that smaller issue and says, I better listen. Because I saw what would happen to me if I don't listen to the command, right? What that means is that many of us, especially for me or anybody who has a gift of faith, or any one of you who may want to step out and do something big and whatnot, is the issue of going for the big thing. Remember how I said, I'm not about the outside in, I'm about the inside out, right? So we go for the big thing and then it ends up failing and then we lose our hope. But the issue was, you're trying to start something like that. Have you done this? Have you taken care of the small things? Because the bigger thing will look at the small thing get taken care of, and the bigger thing is like, and then the bigger thing, when you speak to the bigger thing and say, hey, you move, it will obey. But if there is no reference point in your life where you have taken care of small things, the bigger things won't listen. I don't know if you're grasping what I'm saying. The bigger things won't listen if he has never seen you handle the small things. There are people who want to do big things in their lives, but however, they cannot even make their bed in the morning. So learn to tackle the little things. Learn to change your narrative about the small things. If you learn to take care of the small things, when you now start tackling bigger things, it's going to start working because you've taken care of the small things, right? So those are two things that I wanted to share and leave with you, that be the person in your family, be the person among your colleagues, be the person that says, even though we are used to this, why not something change here? If things have been done the same way over and over again, and this is how we do it, right? Even something as small as, we like punctuality and arriving late, either to a rehearsal or to a shoot, or arriving late to church. Never be that kind of person that says, this is how it's always been. No. Be the person that changes the narrative. Even though that is the thing that people have seen and it's just the way it is. So even for your teams and the way things work, and you say, hey, I know that it's just how it is, that we just come to a photo shoot or a video shoot without any plan, right? I know that that's just the norm and that's how we've always been. But why not build systems? Be the person who says, let's build systems. Let's build a system around a photo shoot. Now, for some of you, you might be used to just rocking up to a video shoot and whatever happens is whatever happens. For some of you, you rock up to a video shoot, no one knows who the director is. Everyone is just a leader there. Why not shift the narrative and say, nah, this is how we do it. If you're going to be the most successful person in whatever thing that you want to achieve, step outside of the narrative. And when you do that, you're going to be different to every other business that is there, and you're going to be the most attractive. I don't know if that makes sense, because you have shifted the narrative. So I hope that's something that will help you in everything that you do. I hope this can really speak into your own personal life, not just your business, not just your work, but like your personal life, where you're like, okay, I'm gonna shift my narrative. I'm not gonna be like this anymore just because it runs in the family. Nah, I'm not gonna do that. Yeah, like, let's move mountains. Let's do stuff out of the ordinary, but also let's also remember to also take care of the small things, because I would be misleading you if I was to tell you go and tackle those giants. Changing your narrative is not just about the big things, it's also taking care of the small things.